Right. Let's do this. So welcome. Today I'm going to be teaching about how to activate courage. And this is part of the Comeback Challenge. And the Comeback Challenge is something that I'm doing for myself personally, for my clients, and for those of you who want to feel activated in this year. And so I have this, not all of you are going to be able to see this whiteboard behind me. It is a very loose demonstration of the map of consciousness or the vibrational scale of emotions. And don't worry, because some of you are just listening to the audio, and I'll make sure that I review this. But if you're new here, welcome. My name's Gammy. I'm an intuitive life and business coach. And what I do is I help perfectionists, high achievers, people pleasers take action. And the thing that's in the way of taking action is a couple of things. Number one, we have imposter syndrome in the way. Number two, we have fear of failure. Number three, we have fear of success. Right? Fear of success is like, what happens if I do really great and then I can't handle it? And then number four, we have lack of clarity. So lack of clarity is always like confusion, overwhelm, any of those emotions that get in the way. So we're going to address all of those today. Now, firstly, I just want to talk about the tool that's behind me so that you can look it up, so that you can tap in, so I can give you some future resources in order to activate yourself, because what you are putting into your brain each day is highly important. And the reason why I decided to do this comeback challenge is because people right now, with everything that's going on politically, right? It's February 2025. We had a lot of political changes, a lot of economic changes, and people are feeling scared. But the only reason that people are feeling scared is because of the inputs that they're putting into their brain. They're watching the news. They're thinking about what's going to happen. They're kind of like creating worst case scenarios in their head. Hello, good morning here. Pam from Texas. Welcome. I love it. Joining us on Instagram. Okay, so inputs are really important. So I want to honor you for being here, because this is the type of content you need to be consuming, not the fear stuff. So hands up if you're on TikTok, hands up if you're on Instagram, hands up if you're on Facebook. If you are, that's okay. But I want you to get really clear. Like I am on TikTok. I like TikTok, but I noticed that when the algorithm changed, it all of a sudden started giving me all these fearful stories, all these people being like, what if this happens? And what if this happens? And I had to actively like disengage to change the algorithm so it wasn't feeding me all of these stories. Another thing that happens on Instagram, and I've actively done this, so I want you to consider this. I've unfollowed anybody who is triggering me, who I'm comparing myself to, or who is just like telling a narrative that is not necessarily beneficial or helpful. Now, this doesn't mean we stop being friends with people. It doesn't mean that we can't engage in person. It's just setting limitations and boundaries on our attention, our time, and our focus. And this is the most important thing for 2025 and any time that you have a goal, is noticing what inputs you're taking in and setting boundaries for yourself. So the other thing that I do is I get a lot of ads, a lot of Facebook ads, a lot of Instagram ads. And essentially what they're telling me all the time is you need to go viral. You need to grow a bigger audience. You need to get better at reels. You need more engagement. And every time those ads come up, I click the X button and then I click this is irrelevant. And I get them to stop sending me all these ads on all of these things that are going to quote unquote fix me or make me viral or do better. And so if you have a business, I really want you to consider blocking all of those ads that are telling you how you're doing it wrong. And instead start inviting those ads for like things that you love. Like I like ads for like makeup. I like ads for like biohacking things. So I'm like, sure, send me ads for like nutritional supplements, biohacking, and makeup. Okay. So I really want you to remember that you have the authority to do that. Now let's talk about courage. Okay. So when you think about courage, I'm curious what comes up for you. Go ahead and type in the comments below, or if you're watching the replay, type it in. What do you think courage is? And I think I'm going to blow your mind with this a little bit, because I'm going to present courage to you in a different way that you probably haven't thought of it before. So I want to start with referencing back to this vibrational scale of emotions, also known as the map of consciousness. This is taught by Dr. David R. Hawkins. Dr. David R. Hawkins also has a book called Power versus Force. You can also just search anything on the internet by David R. Hawkins and take in his information. There's interviews out there and you can get his books. So I want to direct you back to that. But what I'm doing here is summarizing, okay? And the reason why this is really important, the summary of the vibrational scale of emotions, is to show you where you're at. So first we need to have awareness. Anytime we're going after a goal, we need to have awareness. What's the goal we're going after? What's the feeling in the body as I go after it? And what are the thoughts in my mind as I think about going after this goal? So we first need to have awareness. Then the second thing we need is to know that we have the power to change our thoughts and feelings. So where do thoughts and feelings come from, first of all? We have external sources, right? We have circumstances that show up. And then those circumstances that show up create internal thoughts and feelings inside our body. So essentially what happens, most people think my feelings are created by external circumstances, or my thoughts are created by what's going on politically. And what happens is you'll start to convince yourself that this thought is just the truth. And you'll start to convince yourself that it's very important for me to focus on this thought because it is true. And so I'll give you an example here that'll be helpful. I help business owners in the first 5 years of their business double their revenue. I've been in business for 10 years. I have a 6-figure business, and I knew I always wanted to get to $100,000 in my business. But here are some of the thoughts that got me stuck in the beginning. And I want to highlight these thoughts for you as you might be getting stuck here too. Number one thought, well, one of the thoughts that keeps people stuck early on in their business is there's somebody out there better than me. And usually you'll be able to point to a specific competitor and you'll say, well, my Instagram isn't as good as theirs. I don't have enough experience. I don't have enough education. So there's some story of like, I'm not good enough and this other person is better. Now, circumstantially, this could be true, right? When I started out, I hired my first mentor. She had been in business for 6 years, longer than me. She had already had a 6-figure business. And I noticed that I wanted to compare myself to her. And remember, even if that's true, yes, she makes more money, she has more experience, the way it would cause me to feel would be insignificant, powerless, unmotivated, like kind of like feeling down. So I want you to consider, even though the thought may be true, circumstantially, check in with your body to see how it makes you feel. And then remember, you can choose a different thought that causes you to feel differently. Okay? I'm going to give you another example. So I've studied evolutionary biology. I have a degree in molecular cell biology. I've basically studied so much psychology and biology that I find it very interesting how our biology works and how our brain works. So if you think about external circumstances that cause fear, right? So if we're thinking about courage, anytime we're requiring courage, that means that there's fear present. What? I'm going to say this again. Anytime that we require courage, that means that fear is present. So I want you to check in right now. Are you feeling fear about something that you want to achieve? And if you are, great, because you are in the right place to activate courage. Courage doesn't necessarily feel good. Courage just feels like a shift into a positive vibration and a positive frequency. So I'm going to check the comments here on Instagram, and I might pop this off so I can see a little better. You guys have got an interesting setup going on here. Yes. Molly says courage means being willing to be scared or take action or bravery. Yes. And we're going to dive into this a little bit more. So if you think of our ancestors, okay, the nervous system was designed to keep us safe from an external source of fear, like an actual lion, like an actual tiger, like an actual predator that was causing imminent danger, that was in close proximity to ourselves, our family, our tribe. Okay. So then what would happen is our whole nervous system would be activated into fight or flight, saying, I need to get out of here. I need to run, or I need to freeze. I need to hide, right? Or I'm going to need to fight this thing. And so this is your natural, normal reaction from your nervous system to anything external that feels like it could threaten your safety. Okay. Now, the reason why this is really important to think about is because all of us here, if you are on Instagram, if you are on Facebook, if you are holding a phone in your hand, if you're able to live stream, if you're able to tap into this technology, I'm going to make a big assumption here, but I'm going to say it's probably 98% true. You probably have a place to live. You probably are getting food. There's probably a baseline vibration of safety, meaning include food, clothing, shelter. And if you have those things, you've met your baseline for survival. Now, if you are in a developed country like US, UK, Australia, those are a lot of the places where I reach my audience or I have clients from those locations, then what we're doing, if you think of Maslow's hierarchy of needs that you've probably learned in psychology classes, it talks about the bottom of the pyramid being safety, right? Food, clothing, shelter. And then that very top pyramid, in terms of our needs, is accessing spiritual development, accessing enlightenment, tapping into your potential, your purpose. And I'm offering this to you if you have a business, if you have a goal or a dream, whether it's to be a creative and you want to sell your art, whether it's to provide a service to the community and get paid for that, whether it's volunteering, building up a nonprofit, whatever it is, whatever that dream, vision, goal is, that is you with the privilege and ability to tap into the 1% of the global population that is tapping into being able to reach spiritual enlightenment, being able to tap into personal development and personal growth. Okay, so I want you to think about that for a second. This is your privilege. This is your opportunity. This is the thing that you get to do in this lifetime. But here's what happens. Inside your physical body, we are still wired with that primitive brain. And that primitive brain says, I'm scared to show up on social media. I'm scared of what my friends, colleagues, family is going to say about me. I'm scared of rejection. So it's like all of these things as we're going after our dream, they're not actually going to take us out of house and home. But our brain, I'll tap into Instagram, our brain is telling us that it's actually going to take us out of house and home. And that's why in our physical body, we feel deep fear. So how do we shift this? First of all, we have the awareness that this is happening in my body. We slow down enough to breathe and feel it. And this is where a lot of my clients, this is the first time they've ever done this, because what my clients do is they tend to overthink. They stay up in their brain, they overthink, and the more they overthink, the more anxiety and panic they're activating in their body. So what I want to do right now is take a few deep breaths, close your eyes if you can, if you're not driving, breathe deep into the belly, and just see if you can tap in to the sensations in your body now. Okay, so this is the first step. Now, as we look at this scale behind me, I've abbreviated it to make it really useful for this training today, is at the very bottom of the map of consciousness or vibrational scale. And essentially what this is David R. Hawkins did a test where he had human beings feel feelings on purpose, and then they measured those feelings in a quantitative way. And then they put them in a chart to say, here's the low vibrational feelings, here's the high vibrational feelings. Now, what I want you to remember is none of them are bad. Both are part of the human experience. And a lot of times what I see take my clients out is when they start feeling bad, they stop, they get stuck. They're not able to activate their courage and willingness to move forward. And this is why I'm doing this training. And this is also why I offer one-on-one coaching, because a lot of my clients are quick starts. They get ready, they do the thing, they take the action, and then they deal with the negative feelings, the negative thoughts, and then they slow down and they get stuck. So I want to help solve this today. And I also want to invite you into more courage, more power, and actually reach out to book a consultation for coaching. And we'll talk a little bit more deeper on your specific one-on-ones. But at the very bottom of the scale is shame and guilt. It's this deep feeling of I'm not good enough. I'm not good enough. You start feeling depressed, you're feeling down. You also might feel apathetic, like nothing really matters. And I want to offer this to you. As a life coach, I'm not exempt to this human experience. I was feeling these same thoughts last year. It was just a few months ago, about 3 months ago. I was having these thoughts like, what's the point? What matters? Oh, does it matter anyway? And it was leading me to feel like depressed, low energy, kind of like, what's the point? And I remember aggressively getting coaching from my coach. And when I say aggressive, what I do always as a coach is I will not let myself stay stuck. Now, we're going to have low vibrational seasons. We're going to have seasons that are hard. We're going to have seasons that we're wintering. But even if I'm in that season, I'm making incremental progress. So I would show up to my coach and be like, hey, I feel depressed. I feel like nothing I do matters. I feel like no matter what, doesn't matter. And I kept getting stuck in this cycle. And this was just a few months ago. And what my coach said to me was so powerful. And she reminded me of the victim triad. Okay. So if you think of things that are going on in your life, things that are going on in the world, typically there are three characters that we can play or three roles that we can play. The first role is the victim role, right? Something is happening to me. Something is happening to me. They are doing something to me. And when you're in the victim role, you feel powerlessness. Or you might be in the perpetrator role, right? Or you're telling somebody they're the perpetrator and you're projecting your anger and energy outward towards them, the perpetrator. Or you might tap into the perpetrator role where you start showing up not as your highest self, not as your best self, not in the loving way that you'd like to be. And when you're projecting the perpetrator onto somebody else, you usually feel anger, like righteous anger, like I feel like this is righteous. But typically what happens is your focus is on something external, on something that you cannot control. And then if you are in the perpetrator role, you're typically so activated in anger and jealousy and envy, and you're starting to tap into the perpetrator energy, which is like, I'm doing things that I don't really want to be doing. I'm saying things I don't want to be saying. I'm feeling ways that I don't want to be feeling. And then the third role is the savior role. Like, I'm the savior. I'm going to save everyone. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. I'm going to be the advocate. And it's not to say that being an advocate or really, really caring for causes, we're not saying that that's altogether bad. But what we're saying is the savior position puts us in what we do. The reason why we put ourselves there is because we want to feel better. We're like, oh, I want to feel my power again. And the savior role basically says, I need to save other people. I need to step into this hierarchy and put others beneath me so that I can start to feel power again. And so the way to step out of this victim triangle, this perpetrator, right, the drama triangle, is to step out of it and look at it from above and notice, where have I shown up as the victim? Where have I shown up as the perpetrator? Or where have I focused my energy on a perpetrator? And where have I shifted into savior? Like, I need to save people. I need, like, they're less than me and I need to show up to save them. And so when we just have that awareness, okay, here's what the thoughts that are driving it. Here's the actions. In all three roles, I'm not showing up the way that I want to be showing up. We have that awareness, and then we step outside of it. Okay? Already, this is step one of activating courage. You step out of the drama triangle. You step out of victim, perpetrator, or savior, and you step into self-awareness. This is also known as your willingness. I want to have awareness and willingness to look at what's here. Okay? Now, as we move up this vibrational scale of emotions, I said at the bottom is guilt and shame. And then we have apathy, despair, kind of like helplessness, hopelessness. But then above that, I want you to tap into this. We have fear and anger. Fear and anger. So a lot of people are always saying, I want to overcome fear. I want to get rid of fear. And what I'm telling you right now is, in order to activate courage, you need fear. In order to activate courage, you need a little bit of anger. So sometimes stepping into that drama triangle as the savior or as the victim or as the perpetrator, sometimes if you can activate enough anger where you're like, you know what, I want things to change, that anger can propel you into the courage and willingness to do something. So step two is stepping into courage is allowing yourself to go through those other negative emotions. Maybe it's feeling jealous, maybe it's feeling fear, maybe it's feeling angry, and allowing that to activate you into action. Now, courage. Courage is a transformational emotion, and above that is willingness, acceptance, and logic and reason. Okay? Transformational emotions, where we go from negative frequency and vibration into positive, creative, moving forward into expansion energy, is courage. So courage is, I'm willing to be aware of how I didn't show up how I wanted. I'm learning to look at how my habits and my thought patterns contributed to my feelings. I'm willing to look at where I was blaming others or blaming myself. I'm willing to look at where I was taking on the victim role, the perpetrator, or I was stepping into savior. And then courage is your willingness to sit with that discomfort of awareness. Most people stay stuck because they end up buffering. And buffering is when you go and do things to make yourself feel better. I'm going to watch Netflix. I'm going to scroll on TikTok. I'm going to go shopping on Amazon. I'm going to do anything to take myself out of awareness because awareness is uncomfortable. But awareness is automatically us stepping into courage and willingness. Like I'm aware to see what I'm doing here and I'm deciding to shift it actively. So courage does not feel good. That's what I want you to remember. Courage is I'm going to open up my heart. I'm going to feel purpose. I'm going to feel whatever feelings is here, whether it's feeling bad about myself, feeling judgmental, feeling like I didn't show up as my best self, maybe having some regret, breathing through and processing all those feelings, which is something I teach my clients, releasing it all and saying right now in this moment, I get to decide. I get to decide how I'm going to think, how I'm going to feel, and then what actions I'm going to take to tap into my purpose. So when you think about heart expanded, heart open, and you think about your purpose, I'm curious what happens for you. You can drop that in the comments below. Now, I've done consultations with people who, we talked about this earlier on. One of the ways that we block ourselves is by telling ourselves, I don't know, I'm confused, I don't know the next step to take, I don't know my purpose. And I want you to understand why we do this. None of this is actually true. Okay. And most of you, I've had clients fight with me over this, and finally I've broken through to them to show them. But they'll say, for example, like they've never written a book before. And so they'll tell me, I don't know how to write a book. And they're like, well, that's true. And I say, yes, but how does it feel when you tell yourself, I don't know how to do this? I've never done this before. And typically what happens is they feel confused. And as they feel confused, they feel like they don't have access to solutions, to tools. So I want you to flip this into, what do I know? And that simple shift creates curiosity. And when you shift into, but what do I know? Well, I know I've taught XYZ for this many years. I know that I've helped people do this. I know that I have a skill in this. I know that I could probably just write for 2 hours on this one topic. We shift from the energy of I don't know, which is never useful, into, but what do I know? And we tap into curiosity. The other thing is I'm confused. I don't let my clients say I'm confused, okay? I don't let them. Now, I joke about it because when I coach with my clients, I make it funny, I make it light, I help them see how they're keeping themselves stuck. But the reason why we want to stay in I don't know and I'm confused is because it feels safe. It allows us to stay in the fear vibration. It allows us to stay in freeze mode. And anytime you're in freeze mode, you're not going to take any action. You're not going to move forward. You're not going to get anything done. You're not going to reach out. You're not going to make the post. You're not going to potentially sell your offer. You're not going to send the email because you're confused and you don't know. So I want you to really get clear right now that fear just wants to keep us safe. And the thoughts, I don't know, I'm confused, literally keep us anchored to fear. So I've offered you 2 thoughts today to tap into courage. What do I know? And then anytime that you're confused, you can start with, what would it feel like if I did know? And you could tap into feeling. Or what's the easiest way to do this? Or what if this was easy? What's the simplest way for me to get started? And I use it with my clients all the time to get them tapped into an action, as small as it could be, get them tapped into an action that's going to align them with their purpose. It's going to align them to the thing that they're here to do. And for those of you who are like, I don't know what my purpose is, that's also a thought. We can solve that on a free consultation call. You can go ahead and book it, CamiKennedy.vip. You can book a free consultation right now. But here's what I'll say about, I don't know what my purpose is. I think the way that people think about purpose is too big. The way that people think about purpose is like, my life's purpose. I'm going to have to live my whole life to discover my purpose. It's like very big, very dramatic. And what I think it is right now, what would it feel like to feel purposeful? When do I feel purposeful? And you can go back to memories in your life where you felt purposeful, where it was giving a workshop, connecting with children, whether it's your own kids or volunteering, whether it was writing an article, being creative. You get to decide to tap into purpose at any moment. So if you keep telling yourself, I don't know my purpose, you will live your life without a purpose. So what I teach my clients is you decide each and every day in each and every moment what your purpose is, and then you act out that purpose. So you could easily make it be, my purpose is to walk in love. My purpose is to be creative. My purpose is to connect people. My purpose, my mission is to help people transform their mindset and transform their lives. So everything I do is focused around that. This is why I show up in free challenges. This is why I create free content. This is why I offer free consultations. It's because I know when people have one conversation with me, when they get into my energy and we have a perspective shift, I activate them into their purpose, either for that day, for the next 6 months, for that year, or if they decide to work with me for 2 years, we are activated in purpose together. So I want you to really think about these steps. Number one, we have to be in awareness. Number two, we need to know that our thoughts and feelings, we can create them. They're not just happening to us. They are dependent upon what we're focusing upon. And yes, there may be real external circumstances that could create fear and uncertainty, but you get to decide how you think about the circumstances. And how you think about them is going to create the feelings inside your body. And then those feelings are going to activate you into aligned action, or they're going to activate you into more fear, more confusion, and more stuckness. Okay. And then how do you consistently take aligned action? Because what happens, I see, is with my clients, we'll do a training like this, they'll get activated. We'll do a challenge like this, they'll get activated. They will do a consult call with me, they'll get activated. But then the universe is going to set an opportunity for you to practice courage. So at the end of my consultation calls, we talk about coaching. We talk about what it's like to work together. And so that will be your first activation into, do I really want what I say I want? Am I willing to put risk in order to seek my purpose? Am I willing to put money down in order to show up for myself, to create more purpose in my life, to create more courage, to create more action, to create more space for holding emotions for myself? So the universe, God, is going to give you that opportunity to take action on your purpose, on what you say that you want. And this is where a lot of people get stopped up. They might get activated on a free training like this, but then they shut down in fear. And that's okay, because listen, it may take years. Like it took me 18 months to sign on with one of my coaches. And I was like, why did it take me that long? And I knew I had some blockages and fear in the way. But then as soon as I signed up with her, I ended up making 6 figures. So the reason I'm saying this is I invite you and I compel you to book a consultation now rather than later. Because I often think about, over that 18 months where I didn't hire my coach, how much more money could I have made? How much more courage could I have had if I had done it earlier and not let that fear hold on to me? Okay. So I want to invite you to that. Oh, I have Tristina here, former client. So she says, courage isn't the absence of fear. It's a decision to act. Yes. And here's what it feels like in the body. So to me, courage feels like open-hearted, like I am compelled, I am dedicated, I am focused on this thing. Like this is the thing I want to move forward on. And I feel heart open. But then what's going on? My knees might be shaking. Okay. So remember, the body might still have this activation of courage in it, and your knees might still be shaking. So I want you to know that that's okay. That's how we move forward in action. And I'll give you a couple examples of my own life, and then we'll go ahead and close down this training. So one of the actions I took back in 2018, I was transferring my business from health coaching to life coaching. And I knew there was something more that I needed to propel me into that, because I was having thoughts about like, well, I'm just a health coach. I'm just kind of like a mindset coach. Like, can I really coach people on relationships? And at that time I was getting out of this narcissistic relationship. So I was like, I don't know. Can I really coach people on their business if I hadn't made the money yet? And so I was having this wobble. I was having this imposter syndrome, and I signed up for this retreat in Bali. It was called Master Your Influence by 3 coaches. And it was so intimidating because it was these successful male coaches. And I remember I did the consult call with them. They told me the price. It was like $2,500 plus the airfare. So it ended up being $5,000. And I remember my body said yes. It was like, this is a yes. This is what I want to do. This is what I want. Like, this is my life. This is my dream. I've always wanted to go to Bali. Like, I really want to do big things. And I said yes. And I also remember crying for 20 minutes because that yes was like me choosing myself for the first time. I had gotten out of this long-term relationship of a narcissist who basically told me I wasn't worth anything. And this was me saying, I'm worth it. I am worth a $5,000 investment. And I cried and I felt so vulnerable. And I did it anyway. I somehow came up with the money. Like I just decided, committed, and the money showed up for me because of the actions I took once I decided and committed. Then, once I was at that retreat, I remember I'm like, okay, I paid $5,000 to be here. I'm going to show up full out. Like I am going to show up. I am here to play. And because I coach high achieving perfectionists, I also have that trait in me. It's like I wanted to be number one student. I wanted to be best student. And I also wanted to be seen in a certain way. And I remember at the end of one of the workshops, it was coaching, it was open coaching time. And I was like, oh, I was feeling like throwing up because I was like, there's something I want to say. I'm really afraid to say it. But I said that I was going to play full out. Like I came here to get a transformation. And I remember I got the microphone. The microphone was there and like my voice was cracking. My throat was dry. I felt like throwing up. My knees were shaking. And I'm like, okay, hold it together, breathe. And I remember saying to one of the coaches, because I was healing this energy between like, I really wanted men in authority to tell me good job. Like, I really wanted to be recognized, right? Like that was like one of the things I was healing. And this is why I was always in these negative, bad relationships. And then obviously this stemmed from circumstances in childhood, but I'm sitting with the microphone and I looked at him and I said, hey, like, this is hard for me to say, but my experience of today is I'm noticing that I just want you guys to say good job. I want you to recognize me. I want you to feel proud of me. Like I want you to tell me I'm doing great. Like I want validation. And I remember the coach like sat there, just nothing, just basically like, thank you for sharing with no response. And I handed the microphone back and my knees were shaking. I got even more nauseous. I was like, I'm pretty sure I'm going to throw up now. And I sat down on the chair, shaking and crying. And in that moment, I comforted myself so deeply. I felt those feelings of vulnerability, of being open in front of a room full of 40 strangers. And I realized at that moment, that was my breakthrough. Like the coaching in that moment for me was, he wasn't going to say anything to validate me. And I realized I get to validate myself. I get to tell myself good job. I get to tap into what I want for my future vision, and I get to show up in that. And so I'm here to say I have been scared and courageous for 10 years, scared and courageous for 10 years. And I show up as an example of that for you because sometimes people will see me and say, must be nice for you. You're never negative. You're always showing up positive. But what you don't know is oftentimes it takes me 3 hours, morning routine, podcast, workout, journaling to get myself to a place of purpose. And what I don't do is spend time doing things that are not aligned with my purpose. So I learned how to say no to things. I learned how to align with my values. I learned how to connect and collaborate only with people who are in alignment with my vision and my values. I learned how to stop people pleasing. I learned how to stop seeking validation. And I learned how to go really big, put myself out there for failure, experience big public failures that hurt my little heart, and get my coaching, get my healing, process the emotion, get up and go again. And this is what I want for you. This is the value of having a coach. This is why I'm activating you into this challenge. So my call to action for you today is, what are you going to do? If you knew you couldn't fail, what would you do? If you knew results were guaranteed, what would you do? I want you to take an aligned action today. It could be anything relating to your purpose. It could be a small action that gets you more into courage. It could be something that you've been putting off, right? It's on the back of your mind. I should do that. I should send that email. I should reach out to this person. And instead of shoulding yourself, instead of telling yourself you should, you say, I commit to sending this email today because it aligns with this purpose, this vision. An ultimate invitation is to book a free consultation call with me, because why not? Activate yourself into the next step, which is having a conversation about your purpose, your vision, your goals, your dreams. This is the ultimate activation, is being willing to step into vulnerability to say, this is what I want. I'm not really sure if I can get it. And it feels like there's a lot in the way. And then what I do as your coach is I say, we've got this. This is the process. This is how we work together. These are the steps. And I'm always activating you into your belief in yourself. This is why clients work with me. Oftentimes, before you've created the result, you need a coach to believe in you, because you're going to take action. You're going to feel failure. You're going to waver in your belief. And then you come to the coaching call. We build your belief back up. You take action. You feel failure. We build your belief back up to the point where the failures no longer take you out. Instead of them taking you out for 3 months, 6 months, you start to step away from your business, start to step away from your vision. You're wasting time, wasting energy, wasting money, not getting results. We activate you to continuously take action. So in 3 months, you've got a result. So in 6 months, you have a result. There's clients that work with me for 2 years, 3 years, you create bigger and bigger results. I don't even just want to talk about a 100K business. I want to talk to you about $1 million business. I'm working with several of my clients on getting to $1 million business. One of my clients is already over that and tapping into another area of income. So I want you to expand what you think is possible for you. And that is what we do on the consultation call. So you can head over to CamiKennedy.vip, book a free consultation call. I am stacking my calendar with calls this week. So you want to get in now. If you're seeing this now, book it in now. Do not wait, because here's why. If we've activated courage today, you have to act on that courage. Because when you let your brain go back to autopilot, it's going to go back to, oh, I can't do it. Oh, I'm scared. Oh, it's too expensive. Oh, it's not possible for me. It's going to go back into that. So you want to take the action right now. You can head to the website and book it, or you can send me a direct message right now and we'll begin that conversation. But we always want to act in the energy of courage as soon as possible. Tony Robbins always says this: never leave the site of setting a goal without taking action to attain it. Taking some action, right? Don't pretend your way. Actually take the action. And that is what's going to get you to your goals and your results. Okay. All right. That's all I have for you today. I'm going to check the comments one more time, and I will post the replay to Instagram and to Facebook. And you could meet me back here tomorrow at 2 p.m. Eastern. We're going to do day 2 of the challenge. Make sure you're on my email list to get the reminders. I will see you then. Bye, everyone.